The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished marble floors of Windsor Castle as Queen Camilla walked through the grand corridors, her heels clicking softly against the ancient stones. She had always found comfort in these early morning walks, a quiet moment before the day's royal duties began. But today felt different. There was a tension in the air that she couldn't quite place, a feeling that something was about to change everything. Camilla had grown used to the weight of the crown, the constant scrutiny, and the delicate balance of royal protocol. After years of being seen as the other woman, she had worked tirelessly to earn her place beside King Charles. The public had slowly warmed to her, appreciating her dedication to various charities and her genuine care for the people. She thought she had finally found her footing in this complex world of royalty. The Queen Consort paused at a window overlooking the castle gardens, watching as the groundskeepers tended to the roses that Charles loved so much. She smiled, thinking of her husband's passion for gardening and how it brought him peace during stressful times. They would need that peace today, though she didn't yet know why. Her private secretary, Margaret, appeared at her side with the day's schedule. "Your Majesty, the children's charity event is at 11, followed by lunch with the Commonwealth representatives, and then the family gathering this evening." Camilla nodded, her mind already shifting to the important work ahead. She particularly looked forward to the charity event, where she would meet with young people who had overcome significant challenges in their lives. As they walked toward the breakfast room, Margaret hesitated. "Ma'am, there's been some chatter on social media overnight." "Nothing serious, just the usual commentary about royal events." Camilla waved it off. She had learned long ago not to pay too much attention to online gossip. The internet was full of opinions, most of them uninformed and many of them unkind. In the breakfast room, Charles was already seated with his morning tea and newspapers spread before him. His face looked troubled as he read, occasionally shaking his head at whatever he was seeing in the press. "Good morning, darling," Camilla said, kissing his cheek before taking her seat. "Anything interesting in the news?" Charles folded his paper and gave her a weak smile. "Just the usual political nonsense. Nothing we need to worry about." But Camilla could see the concern in his eyes. After all these years together, she could read him like a book. Something was bothering him, but she knew he would tell her when he was ready. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Prince William and Catherine, along with their 3 children. Princess Charlotte, now 9 years old, bounded into the room with the energy that only children possess. Her brothers, Prince George and Prince Louis, followed more sedately, still rubbing sleep from their eyes. "Good morning, Grandpapa." "Good morning, Grandmama." Charlotte called out cheerfully, using the names she had chosen for Charles and Camilla. The little princess had always been spirited and confident, qualities that reminded Camilla of herself at that age. She had developed a special bond with Charlotte over the years, often spending quiet afternoons teaching her about royal history and the responsibilities that came with their position. "Good morning, sweetheart," Camilla replied, her heart warming at the sight of the children. These family moments were what she treasured most about her role. Despite all the public duties and ceremonial obligations, it was the quiet times with family that made everything worthwhile. As the family settled in for breakfast, the conversation flowed naturally between school stories, upcoming royal engagements, and weekend plans. Charlotte was particularly excited about a school project she was working on about historical queens. "Grandmama, will you help me with my presentation? I want to talk about strong queens who made a difference." Camilla's eyes lit up. "Of course, darling. We'll make it wonderful." She loved these opportunities to share her knowledge and passion for history with the younger generation. It was one of the ways she felt she could truly contribute to the royal family's future. William and Catherine exchanged glances, and Camilla noticed a slight tension between them. As parents, they were always careful about balancing their children's royal responsibilities with their desire for a normal childhood. Every public appearance, every photo, every story had to be carefully considered. After breakfast, the family prepared to go their separate ways for the day's activities. Charlotte gave Camilla an extra long hug before leaving with her parents. "I love you, Grandmama," she whispered. "I hope we can work on my project soon. I love you too, precious girl, Camilla replied, holding her close. We'll make time very soon, I promise. As the younger members of the family departed, Camilla felt a sense of contentment wash over her. These were the moments that made all the challenges worthwhile. She had found her place in this family, and, more importantly, she had found love and acceptance from the children who would one day carry on the royal legacy. The morning continued with routine preparations for the day's events. Camilla's dresser helped her select an appropriate outfit for the charity event, an elegant blue ensemble that would photograph well and convey the right message of approachability and authority. Every detail mattered in the royal world, from the color of her clothing to the jewelry she chose to wear. As they drove to the charity event, Camilla reviewed her notes about the young people she would be meeting. Each child had a story of resilience and determination that inspired her. One had overcome a serious illness, another had started a community garden in an underserved neighborhood, and yet another had created an anti-bullying program at their school. These were the future leaders, and Camilla felt honored to support their efforts. The charity event was held at a community center in East London, a location chosen specifically to show the royal family's commitment to supporting all areas of the country. As Camilla's car pulled up, she could see the crowd of well-wishers and media gathered outside. She took a deep breath, put on her public smile, and prepared to do what she did best: connect with people and shine a light on important causes. The event went beautifully. Camilla spent time with each young person, listening to their stories and asking thoughtful questions about their work. She was particularly moved by a 12-year-old girl who had started a reading program for younger children in her neighborhood. You remind me of someone very special, Camilla told her, thinking of Charlotte's own enthusiasm for learning and helping others. As the event concluded, Camilla felt energized and proud of the work these young people were doing. She made sure to take photos with each child and promised to follow up on their projects. These connections were real and meaningful, far from the formal protocols that dominated much of royal life. On the drive back to the palace, Margaret briefed her on the afternoon schedule. The Commonwealth lunch should be straightforward, ma'am. Just the usual diplomatic discussions. And then, you have about an hour free before the family gathering this evening. Camilla nodded, looking forward to that quiet hour. She planned to call Charlotte and start planning their history project together. It would be a perfect way to wind down from the day's official duties and reconnect with what truly mattered to her. But, as they approached the palace gates, Margaret's phone began buzzing urgently. She glanced at the screen and her face paled. Ma'am, I think we need to return to the palace immediately. There seems to be some sort of situation developing. Camilla felt a chill run down her spine. In the royal world, a situation could mean anything from a political crisis to a family scandal. What kind of situation, Margaret? I'm not entirely sure yet, ma'am. But there are reports circulating about this morning's breakfast, and social media is very active. The feeling of unease that had plagued Camilla all morning suddenly intensified. Something told her that whatever was happening would change everything, and that the peaceful family breakfast she had enjoyed just hours earlier might be the last normal moment she would have for a very long time. As the palace walls came into view, Camilla steeled herself for whatever storm was about to break. She had weathered many challenges in her journey to become queen consort, but something told her that this one would test her in ways she had never imagined. The morning's happiness already felt like a distant memory as the car pulled through the gates and into an uncertain future. The palace corridors that had seemed so peaceful that morning now buzzed with an energy that made Camilla's stomach churn. Staff members moved quickly past her, their faces serious and purposeful. Something significant was happening, and, from the worried glances she received, she suspected she was at the center of it. Margaret walked quickly beside her, phone pressed to her ear as she tried to gather information. Yes, I understand. No, don't release any statements yet. We need to assess the situation first. She ended the call and turned to Camilla with obvious concern. Ma'am, we need to get you to the private office immediately. The communications team is waiting. As they hurried through the palace, Camilla's mind raced. What could have happened? The breakfast had been lovely, a perfect family moment. Charlotte had been her usual spirited self, full of excitement about her school project. William and Catherine had been perhaps a bit quieter than usual, but that wasn't uncommon given the pressures they faced as senior royals. The private office was filled with tense-faced staff members hunched over laptops and phones. The communications director, James, looked up as she entered, his expression grave. "Your Majesty, we have a situation that requires immediate attention. There's a video circulating on social media that appears to be from this morning's family breakfast." Camilla felt the blood drain from her face. "A video? How is that possible? Who could have?" But, even as she asked, she realized how naive the question was. In today's world, anyone with a phone could become a broadcaster. Staff members, security personnel, even family members, phones were everywhere, and privacy was increasingly difficult to maintain. James gestured to his laptop screen. "The footage appears to show an interaction between yourself and Princess Charlotte. It's been edited and shared with commentary that, well, it's not favorable." He hesitated, clearly struggling with how to present the information. "The person who posted it claims that you were harsh with the princess, that you scolded her inappropriately." Camilla sank into a chair, her legs suddenly weak. "That's impossible. I would never. Charlotte and I have a wonderful relationship. This morning was beautiful. She was telling me about her school project and we made plans to work on it together." Her voice trailed off as she tried to remember every detail of their interaction. "Ma'am, perhaps you should see for yourself," Margaret suggested gently, though her reluctance was obvious. She turned the laptop screen toward Camilla, and what she saw made her heart sink. The video was clearly edited, showing only fragments of their conversation. It began with Charlotte excitedly talking about her project, then jumped to a moment where Camilla appeared to be speaking seriously to the child. The video had no audio, but Charlotte's face seemed to change from happy to subdued. Then, it cut to Charlotte walking away, her shoulders slightly slumped. To someone who hadn't been there, who didn't know the full context, it could indeed look like Camilla had said something to upset the child. But Camilla remembered that moment clearly now. Charlotte had been so excited about her project that she was talking about skipping her afternoon lessons to work on it immediately. Camilla had gently reminded her about the importance of attending all her classes first, explaining that good queens were well-educated queens. Charlotte had understood and agreed, but the video made it look like something entirely different had happened. "Where did this come from?" Camilla asked, though she was almost afraid to hear the answer. James cleared his throat uncomfortably. "It appears to have been taken by a new member of the kitchen staff. Someone who was delivering fresh flowers to the breakfast room. They've since been dismissed, but the video was already circulating before we identified the source." Camilla closed her eyes, trying to process this betrayal. Someone had been in that intimate family space, secretly recording, looking for something they could sell or use to damage the royal family. It felt like a violation of the most fundamental level of trust. "What are people saying?" she asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Margaret pulled out her phone, scrolling through social media with obvious distress. "The reactions are intense. People are using hashtags like Protect Charlotte and Camilla Unmasked. There are calls for investigations into how the royal children are treated. Some are even suggesting that you're unfit to be around the children at all." The words hit Camilla like physical blows. After years of working to build positive relationships with the public, after all the charity work and careful cultivation of her image, she could feel it all crumbling because of a few seconds of edited video that told a completely false story. "Has anyone from Prince William's office been in contact?" she asked. The thought of William and Catherine believing these lies about her relationship with their children was almost unbearable. "We've reached out," James replied carefully. "They're dealing with their own communications crisis at the moment. The children's privacy has been violated, which is their primary concern right now." Of course it was. Camilla understood that William and Catherine's first priority had to be protecting their children. But she couldn't help but hope that they would also see fit to defend her, to explain the true nature of her relationship with Charlotte and the other children. Their silence, while understandable, felt like abandonment. Over the next few hours, Camilla watched helplessly as the story grew and mutated across social media and news outlets. What had started as a simple edited video became the foundation for elaborate theories about her character and fitness for royal duties. People who had never met her, who knew nothing about her daily interactions with the royal children, were making definitive statements about her personality and behavior. The worst part was reading comments from people who claimed to be protecting Charlotte. They painted Camilla as some sort of villain, a wicked stepmother figure who was somehow harming an innocent child. The irony was painful. These people thought they were defending Charlotte, but their accusations were actually attacking one of the most important relationships in the little girl's life. Charles found her in the private office as the afternoon wore on, his face etched with worry and frustration. "Darling, I'm so sorry this is happening. I've seen the video, and anyone who knows you could see that it's been taken completely out of context." Camilla looked up at her husband, grateful for his support but aware that it might not be enough. "Charles, what if people don't want to see the context? What if they prefer this version of events because it confirms what they already believed about me?" It was a fear that had haunted her throughout her royal journey. Despite years of positive public engagements and genuine dedication to her duties, there were still people who saw her as an outsider, someone who didn't belong in the royal family. This video gave those critics ammunition they had been waiting for. "We'll get through this," Charles said firmly, taking her hand. "The truth has a way of emerging, and the people who matter know who you really are." But even as he spoke the comforting words, Camilla could see the concern in his eyes. This wasn't just about her reputation anymore. This was about the safety and privacy of his grandchildren, about the stability of the monarchy itself. If the public lost faith in the royal family's ability to protect and nurture the next generation, it could have implications far beyond one edited video. As evening approached, Camilla realized that the family gathering planned for that night would likely be cancelled. No one would want to risk another potential recording, another moment that could be taken out of context and used against them. The spontaneous, loving interactions that had made her role as a royal grandmother so meaningful were now dangerous, something to be avoided rather than cherished. Margaret approached with another update, her face grave. "Ma'am, we've had several requests for official responses from major news outlets. They want statements about your relationship with the royal children and your role in their upbringing." Camilla felt trapped. Responding would give the story more attention and legitimacy, but staying silent might be interpreted as admission of guilt. Every option seemed to carry risks, and the public relations machinery of the monarchy was struggling to find the right approach. "What does the King's office recommend?" she asked. "They're advocating for a measured response that emphasizes the strong family relationships and the private nature of family interactions. But they're also concerned about drawing more attention to the children." It was an impossible situation. Defending herself might put the children in more spotlight, but not defending herself could damage not just her own reputation but also the monarchy's credibility. Camilla realized that she was facing a lose-lose scenario, where any action she took could be criticized and any inaction could be seen as confirmation of wrongdoing. As night fell over the palace, Camilla sat alone in her private sitting room, looking out at the gardens where she had walked so peacefully that morning. The day had started with such promise: a loving family breakfast, meaningful charity work, plans for quality time with Charlotte on her history project. Now all of that seemed like it belonged to a different lifetime. Her phone buzzed with a text message, and her heart leaped when she saw it was from Catherine. "We know the truth about this morning. Charlotte has been asking when she can work on her project with you. This will pass." The message brought tears to Camilla's eyes. In the midst of all the public controversy and media speculation, what mattered most was that the family knew the truth. Charlotte still wanted to work on her project, still trusted and loved her grandmother. That relationship, the real one rather than the distorted version being discussed online, remained intact. But, as Camilla prepared for what would undoubtedly be a sleepless night, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The video had opened a door that would be difficult to close, setting a precedent that private family moments could be recorded, edited, and weaponized. The sanctuary of family life that she had come to cherish was now under threat, and she wasn't sure if it could ever be fully restored. The next morning brought no relief from the storm that had engulfed Camilla's life. If anything, the situation had grown worse overnight as the story spread internationally and took on a life of its own. What had started as an edited video was now being analyzed by body language experts, discussed by child psychologists on television, and dissected by royal commentators who had never met any of the people involved. Camilla barely slept, spending the dark hours staring at the ceiling and replaying every interaction she'd ever had with Charlotte. She found herself questioning moments that had seemed perfectly natural at the time. Had she been too firm when teaching Charlotte about royal protocol? Too strict when explaining the importance of punctuality? Every memory was now filtered through the lens of public suspicion, and she began to doubt her own recollections of events. Margaret arrived early with the morning briefings, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by professional concern. "Ma'am, the overnight coverage has been extensive. Several international outlets have picked up the story, and there are now opinion pieces being written about grandparent relationships and child welfare in high-profile families." Camilla accepted the stack of newspapers and tablets with trembling hands. The headlines were worse than she had imagined: palace under fire over royal child treatment, questions raised about Queen Consort's relationship with step-grandchildren, and, most painfully, is Princess Charlotte safe? Each headline felt like a personal attack, not just on her reputation but on the genuine love and care she felt for all of Charles's grandchildren. The articles themselves were filled with speculation and expert opinions from people who had never witnessed her interactions with the children. One child psychologist, who admitted to never having met the royal family, analyzed the brief video clip and concluded that it showed concerning dynamics in the relationship. A royal biographer who had written critically about Camilla in the past used the incident to revisit old grievances about her role in the family. But, perhaps most hurtful were the comments from members of the public who felt empowered to make definitive judgments about her character based on a few seconds of edited footage. "I knew she was wrong for this family," wrote one commenter. "That poor little girl deserves better," wrote another. Reading these comments felt like being stabbed repeatedly by strangers who thought they knew her story. Charles found her in the morning room, surrounded by newspapers and looking devastated. "Darling, you shouldn't be reading all of this. It's just noise, people who don't know anything about our family making assumptions." "But, what if they're right?" Camilla said quietly. "What if I have been too stern with the children? What if my approach to royal duties has made me forget how to just be a grandmother?" Charles sat beside her and took her hands. "I've watched you with those children for years. I've seen how Charlotte's face lights up when she sees you, how excited she gets about your history lessons. I've watched you comfort George when he was nervous about public appearances, and I've seen you patiently answer Louis's endless questions about everything. You are a wonderful grandmother, and this manufactured controversy doesn't change that." His words provided some comfort, but Camilla couldn't shake the feeling that public perception had become its own reality. Even if the people who knew her understood the truth, the millions who didn't might never see past the narrative that was now being written about her. The communications team had been working around the clock to develop a response strategy, but every option seemed fraught with risk. James presented their latest thinking during the morning meeting. "We could arrange for more positive footage of Your Majesty with the children at public events, but that feels reactive and might seem staged. We could have other family members speak publicly about their observations, but that draws them into the controversy." "What about a direct statement from me?" Camilla asked. "Explaining what actually happened that morning?" Margaret shook her head. "The legal team advises against that. Any specific details you provide could be contradicted by other edited footage we don't know exists. Plus, it would essentially be your word against a video, which is difficult public relations ground." The impossible situation was becoming clearer. The nature of edited video meant that context could be removed and narrative shaped in ways that made defending against false accusations nearly impossible. The very technology that had allowed someone to secretly record their family breakfast was now being used to create a version of events that bore little resemblance to reality. Meanwhile, the broader royal family was dealing with their own aspects of the crisis. William and Catherine were facing questions about their children's privacy and security. How had someone been able to record in such an intimate family setting?
What safeguards were in place to protect the children from future invasions of privacy?
Their primary concern was rightly focused on their children's welfare, but it meant that defending Camilla wasn't their highest priority. The palace security team was conducting a thorough review of protocols, trying to understand how the recording had been made and how to prevent similar incidents in the future. But Camilla knew that the damage was already done. Even if they could guarantee complete privacy going forward, the trust that had made those family moments so special had been broken. By midday, the story had evolved beyond the original video. Social media was now filled with amateur detectives claiming to have found evidence of other concerning interactions between Camilla and the children. Old photos from public events were being re-examined and reinterpreted through this new suspicious lens. A picture of Camilla guiding Charlotte through a formal receiving line was now being described as evidence of controlling behavior. A moment when she helped George with his posture during a ceremony was being called inappropriate intervention. The most painful part was seeing how the speculation was affecting genuine supporters. People who had defended Camilla for years were beginning to express doubts, not because they believed the worst interpretations but because they felt confused by the conflicting information. The loyal constituency she had worked so hard to build was being eroded by uncertainty and manipulation. Catherine called that afternoon, her voice carefully controlled but clearly emotional.
Camilla, I need you to know that we don't believe any of this nonsense.
Charlotte has been asking about you constantly, wondering why there are photographers outside our house and why people are talking about her breakfast. The thought of Charlotte being confused and upset by the media attention made Camilla feel sick.
Is she okay? Does she understand what's happening?
She's resilient, but she's also 9 years old. She doesn't understand why a normal conversation with her grandmother is being discussed on television.
William is furious about the invasion of privacy, and we're considering legal action against whoever recorded and shared that video.
Camilla was grateful for their support, but she also understood the delicate position William and Catherine were in. As the parents of the future king, they had to be seen as protecting their children above all else. Public expressions of support for Camilla might be interpreted as prioritizing adult relationships over child welfare, which could damage their own reputation as parents. As the afternoon wore on, Camilla found herself thinking about Charlotte's history project and all the queens they had planned to study together. She thought about Elizabeth I, who had faced constant criticism and survived assassination attempts. She thought about Victoria, who had been criticized as a mother but had maintained the dignity of the monarchy through difficult times. These queens had faced much worse than manipulated videos and social media campaigns, but they hadn't had to deal with the instant global nature of modern communication.
The late afternoon brought a particularly difficult development.
Margaret appeared with news that several of Camilla's charitable patronages were receiving pressure to distance themselves from her. It's not that they believe the allegations, Margaret explained carefully. But they're concerned about the controversy affecting their ability to help the people they serve.
This news hit Camilla harder than any headline or social media comment.
Her charitable work was where she felt she made her most meaningful contribution to the role of queen consort. The thought that her association might actually harm the causes she cared about was devastating. It also represented a new escalation in the crisis. It was no longer just about her reputation or even her relationships within the family, but about her ability to fulfill her royal duties. Evening brought a brief respite when Charles suggested they take a quiet walk in their private garden, away from staff and phones and the constant updates about the unfolding situation. As they walked among the roses he tended so carefully, Camilla tried to find some peace in the familiar routine.
"Do you think this will end?" she asked quietly. "Or is this just how things are going to be from now on?"
Charles was quiet for a long moment before answering.
"I think we're living through a fundamental change in how public life works.
The old boundaries between private and public, between family time and official duties, those lines are being erased by technology and social media.
We'll have to learn to navigate this new reality."
His honesty, while painful, was also somehow reassuring. This wasn't just about one edited video or one malicious staff member. This was about adapting to a world where privacy was increasingly impossible and where narrative could be shaped by anyone with a phone and internet access. As they returned to the palace, Camilla made a decision. She couldn't control how others interpreted her actions or what stories they chose to believe, but she could control how she responded to the crisis. She would not let fear and suspicion destroy the relationships that mattered most to her. Charlotte was still the same loving granddaughter she had always been, and their bond was stronger than any edited video could suggest. But, as she prepared for another sleepless night, Camilla knew that the hardest test was still ahead. The court of public opinion had rendered its preliminary verdict, and changing the judgment would require more than just time and good intentions. It would require a fundamental shift in how people understood truth, trust, and the complex reality of family relationships in the most scrutinized household in the world. 2 weeks had passed since the video first appeared, and, while the initial frenzy had somewhat subsided, its effects lingered like a persistent shadow over palace life. Camilla had learned to navigate each day with careful deliberation, knowing that every interaction was now subject to potential scrutiny and misinterpretation. The spontaneous joy she had once found in family moments had been replaced by a careful awareness of how others might perceive her words and actions. The morning of Charlotte's 9th birthday dawned gray and drizzly, matching Camilla's mood as she prepared for what should have been a celebration. In the past, she would have been one of the first to arrive at Kensington Palace with carefully chosen gifts and excited plans for the day. Now she found herself questioning whether her presence would overshadow Charlotte's special day with unwanted media attention and speculation. Margaret knocked softly on her door with the morning briefings. "Ma'am, Prince William's office has confirmed that you're still expected for Princess Charlotte's birthday celebration this afternoon. They've emphasized that it's a private family gathering with enhanced security measures." Camilla felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. She desperately wanted to be there for Charlotte's birthday, but she also worried about bringing controversy to what should be a joyful day. "Have there been any developments overnight?" "The story has largely moved off the front pages," Margaret reported carefully. "There's been some positive coverage of your visit to the Children's Hospital yesterday, and several of your patronages have issued statements reaffirming their support." The hospital visit had been Camilla's first major public appearance since the video incident. She had been nervous about the reception, but the children and families she met had been warm and welcoming. More importantly, the medical staff had spoken privately about how much her regular visits meant to them and their young patients. It was a reminder that her work had value beyond the noise of social media commentary. As she dressed for Charlotte's party, Camilla chose her outfit with even more care than usual. Nothing too formal that might seem intimidating to a child, but nothing too casual that could be interpreted as not taking the occasion seriously. Every choice now carried weight and potential for misinterpretation. The drive to Kensington Palace was quiet, with Margaret making calls to coordinate with the security team. Extra precautions were being taken to prevent any unauthorized recordings or photographs. The irony wasn't lost on Camilla that celebrating with her granddaughter now required the same security measures as a state visit. When she arrived at Kensington Palace, William greeted her at the door with a warm embrace that felt both comforting and slightly performative. She knew that palace staff and security personnel were watching, possibly documenting the interaction for future reference if questions arose about family dynamics. "She's been asking about you all morning," William said quietly. "She wanted to make sure you got the invitation she drew herself." Indeed, Charlotte's handmade invitation was a work of art featuring drawings of crowns, flowers, and a tea party. At the bottom, in careful 9-year-old handwriting, were the words, "For Grandmama, with love from Charlotte." It was exactly the kind of personal touch that made these family moments so precious, and Camilla felt tears welling up as she read it. Catherine appeared with Prince Louis in her arms, offering a genuine smile despite the obvious strain around her eyes. The past 2 weeks had been difficult for the entire family, not just because of the controversy but because of the increased security measures and media attention that affected all their daily routines. "Charlotte!" Catherine called toward the sitting room. "Grandmama is here." The sound of running feet preceded Charlotte's appearance, and, when she burst into the hallway, her face lit up with pure joy. For a moment, all of Camilla's anxiety melted away. This was her granddaughter, the little girl who loved history stories and tea parties and had never seen her as anything other than a beloved family member. "Grandmama! You came! I have so much to show you." Charlotte wrapped her arms around Camilla's waist with the unconscious affection that only children possess.
I finished my history project, and Mrs. Henderson said it was the best in the class.
Camilla knelt down to Charlotte's level, forgetting for a moment about watching eyes and potential cameras.
Tell me everything, sweetheart. I want to hear about every queen you studied.
As Charlotte launched into an enthusiastic description of her project, complete with dramatic reenactments of historical scenes, Camilla was reminded of why she had fallen in love with being a royal grandmother in the first place. These children were not just the future of the monarchy, they were intelligent, curious, loving individuals who deserved to grow up with strong family relationships. The birthday party proceeded with the careful normalcy that royal families had perfected over generations. George showed Camilla his latest drawings, Louis demonstrated his improved walking skills, and Charlotte opened presents with the appropriate mixture of excitement and politeness. To an outside observer, it would have looked like any loving extended family gathering.
But Camilla was acutely aware of the undercurrents.
Staff members moved more quietly than usual, and she noticed security personnel positioned where they had never been needed before during family gatherings. The easy informality of previous celebrations had been replaced by a subtle tension that everyone felt but no one acknowledged. During the cake ceremony, Charlotte made a point of insisting that Camilla sit next to her.
"Grandmama helps make the best wishes come true," she announced to the gathered family.
It was such an innocent, loving gesture that Camilla felt her heart breaking a little bit. Charlotte had no idea that her simple statement of affection might be analyzed and questioned by strangers on the internet. After the cake, Charlotte pulled Camilla aside to a quiet corner of the room.
"Grandmama, why are there so many photographers outside?"
"Mama said people are interested in our family, but it seems like more than usual." Camilla struggled with how to explain the situation to a 9-year-old without frightening her or damaging her trust in adults.
"Sometimes people get very curious about royal families, sweetheart. They want to know everything we do, even normal family things like birthday parties."
"But that's silly," Charlotte said with the clear logic of childhood.
"Birthday parties are private. You wouldn't want strangers at your birthday party."
"You're absolutely right," Camilla agreed.
"Some things should stay private, especially family moments." Charlotte nodded seriously, then brightened.
"Well, I'm glad you're here.
It wouldn't be a real birthday party without all my family."
The simple acceptance in Charlotte's voice was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. While adults debated and speculated about their relationship, Charlotte had never questioned the love and support she received from her step-grandmother. The child's clear affection was perhaps the strongest argument against all the manufactured controversy. As the party wound down, Camilla prepared to leave with mixed emotions. The afternoon had been wonderful, full of the genuine family connection that made her role meaningful. But she was also aware that every moment had been more guarded than in the past, every interaction filtered through awareness of potential public scrutiny. William walked her to her car, speaking quietly as they moved through the palace corridors.
"We've been thinking about how to move forward from all this."
The children missed the spontaneous visits and casual family time. "We don't want them to grow up thinking that loving their step-grandmother is somehow controversial." Camilla appreciated his thoughtfulness, but she also understood the impossible position he was in.
"I just want what's best for the children. If my presence creates problems or attracts unwanted attention..."
"Your presence doesn't create problems," William interrupted firmly. "Other people's inability to understand normal family relationships creates problems.
We're not going to let misguided speculation damage relationships that are important to our children."
His support meant everything to Camilla, but she also knew that royal life often required difficult choices between personal relationships and public perception. The family would have to navigate these waters carefully, balancing their desire for normal family relationships with their responsibilities to the monarchy and the public. On the drive back to Windsor, Camilla reflected on how much had changed in just 2 weeks. The carefree joy of family gatherings had been complicated by security concerns and public relations considerations. Yet Charlotte's birthday had also reminded her why these relationships were worth fighting for. The love between a grandmother and granddaughter was real and valuable, regardless of how others chose to interpret it.
That evening, she received a handwritten thank you note from Charlotte, delivered by Palace Messenger. "Dear Grandmama," it read in careful cursive, "thank you for coming to my birthday party. I loved showing you my history project. Can we work on the next one together? I want to study queens who were brave when people were mean to them. Love, Charlotte." The note brought tears to Camilla's eyes, both for its sweet innocence and its unconscious wisdom. Perhaps Charlotte understood more about current events than anyone realized. And, perhaps, in her 9-year-old way, she was offering her grandmother exactly the inspiration she needed. As Camilla prepared for bed that night, she realized that the crisis had changed her but hadn't broken her. The relationship with Charlotte remained strong and genuine, built on years of shared experiences and mutual affection that couldn't be destroyed by edited videos or social media speculation. The path forward wouldn't be easy, and the royal family would have to adapt to new realities about privacy and public scrutiny. But the love that had brought them together as a family was stronger than the forces trying to drive them apart. The storm had shaken the palace walls, but the foundation, built on genuine care, mutual respect, and the simple joy of family relationships, remained solid. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but it would also bring new opportunities to demonstrate that authentic human connection could survive even in the most scrutinized environment in the world.